Have you ever heard a story so chilling it makes you question everything you thought you knew? This is the tale of Ravenbrook, Washington, and a disappearance that still haunts the town to this day. It all began on a rainy evening back in 2001. A quiet, unassuming day that would forever be marked by a mystery that defies explanation. Imagine this. 8-year-old Ethan Miller, a bright kid with a cheerful smile, is walking home from school. It's just a 3-block walk, a journey he's made 100 times. He's carrying his little red umbrella, a splash of color against the gray, rainy backdrop. His teacher remembers him waving goodbye, that same happy smile on his face. But that was the last time anyone saw him. He never made it home. The news hit Ravenbrook like a thunderclap. A child vanished into thin air. The community immediately sprang into action. Search teams, armed with hope and determination, scoured every inch of the town. They combed through the dense, dark woods that bordered Ravenbrook, their calls echoing through the trees. Helicopters buzzed overhead, their searchlights cutting through the gloom. K-9 units sniffed through every trail, and hundreds of volunteers joined the search, refusing to give up. Days turned into weeks, and the search yielded nothing. No clues, no witnesses, no ransom note. It was as if Ethan had simply ceased to exist. The only thing they ever found was his red umbrella. It was discovered lying open in a ditch not far from his home. But here's the strange part. It was perfectly clean. Not a speck of mud, not a single tear. It looked as if someone had gently placed it there, a silent, mocking clue that led nowhere. The town was shattered, wrapped in a blanket of fear and grief. For Ethan's mother, Laura Miller, the world had stopped turning. While some might have sought a new beginning elsewhere, Laura refused to leave Ravenbrook. She couldn't abandon the home her son was supposed to return to. So she waited. Every single night for 12 long, agonizing years, she left the porch light on. It became a beacon of hope in the darkness, a silent promise that she was still waiting for her boy to find his way home. The light became a symbol for the entire town, a constant reminder of the child they had lost. Then, one cold night in 2013, the impossible happened. At exactly 2:37 a.m., a sharp knock echoed through the Miller house. Laura, woken from a restless sleep, felt a jolt of something she hadn't felt in years, a mix of terror and hope. She crept to the door, her heart pounding in her chest, and turned the handle. When she opened it, she froze, unable to breathe. Standing on her porch was a young man, probably in his early 20s. He was soaked to the bone from the rain, his clothes clinging to his thin frame. His face was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes were hollow, holding a depth of darkness she couldn't comprehend. He looked at her, and in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Mom, it's me." It was Ethan. 12 years older, changed beyond recognition, but it was him. DNA tests later confirmed his identity. The lost boy of Ravenbrook had come home. The news spread like wildfire. The town celebrated, a collective sigh of relief after more than a decade of uncertainty. The porch light was finally turned off, but the celebration was short-lived. The joy quickly soured as everyone, especially Laura, realized something was terribly wrong with Ethan. The boy who returned was a ghost of his former self. He was quiet, withdrawn, and utterly emotionless. He moved through the house like a shadow, his presence barely registering. He flinched at bright lights, often retreating to the darkest corners of a room. He rarely spoke, and when he did, his words were clipped and empty. Any attempts to ask where he'd been for 12 years were met with a wall of silence. The only thing he would ever say in a hushed, fearful tone was, "They don't like it when I talk about it." Who were they? He would never elaborate. Soon, the strangeness escalated. The porch light, that symbol of hope which had burned steadily for 12 years, began to flicker. It would happen every single night at precisely 2:37 a.m., the exact time Ethan had knocked on the door. It was as if some unseen force was playing a cruel joke. The family dog, who had once been a playful companion, now refused to go anywhere near Ethan's room. It would whine and cower, its fur standing on end, whenever Ethan was close. Laura watched her son, her heart breaking all over again. This wasn't the reunion she had dreamed of. The most disturbing part was that Ethan never seemed to sleep. Night after night, Laura would find him sitting motionless by his bedroom window, his hollow eyes fixed on the dark, foreboding woods that bordered their property. He would just sit there for hours, staring as if waiting for something, or someone. One night, Laura couldn't take the silence anymore. The not knowing was eating her alive. She went to his room, her voice trembling as she pleaded with him. "Ethan, please, you have to tell me what happened to you. Where were you?" She needed an answer, any answer, to make sense of the nightmare she was living. For the first time since his return, Ethan showed emotion. He turned to face her, his pale cheeks glistening with tears. His expression was one of pure, soul-crushing terror. He looked at his mother, and in a soft, chilling whisper that would haunt her for the rest of her days, he said, "Mom, they let me go. Because they want another one now." The meaning of his words hung in the air, heavy and terrifying. Laura stared at him, a cold dread washing over her. The next morning, Laura Miller was gone. The front door of the Miller house was wide open, swinging gently in the morning breeze. The house was empty, except for one person. Ethan was sitting at the kitchen table, calmly drinking a cup of tea, as if nothing had happened. He was completely alone. The police launched another massive search, this time for Laura. But just like with Ethan 12 years earlier, they found nothing. Weeks of searching turned up no clues, no body, no sign of her. She had vanished just as completely as her son once had. With his mother gone and his behavior becoming increasingly erratic, Ethan was scheduled to be transported to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. But he never made it there. On the way, the police car transporting him crashed in the forest, the same forest he used to stare at from his window. The vehicle was a wreck, mangled and destroyed. The officers were injured, but alive. When they checked the back seat, it was empty. Ethan was gone. Again. The story doesn't end there. Months later, a truck driver was passing through Ravenbrook late one night. He called the police, shaken, to report something strange. He said he saw a young boy standing by the side of the road, right at the edge of the woods. The boy was holding a small red umbrella and he was smiling, not at the road but at the dark trees behind him. Today, the Miller house stands abandoned, a decaying monument to a family destroyed by an unspeakable horror. The windows are boarded up, the paint is peeling, but one thing remains. Locals will tell you that the porch light, after all these years, still flickers. It starts every night at exactly 2:37 a.m. The people of Ravenbrook whisper that the house is not truly empty. They say that if you're brave enough or foolish enough to walk up to that decaying porch and knock on the front door, something always knocks back. Thank you so much for watching. What do you think happened to Ethan and his mother? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more mysteries. Stay safe out there, and see you next time.